Every Tuesday, we welcome in our good friend Lloyd Vance. Vance's View covers the NFL and, of course, our NFL Insider to kind of recap everything that's going on. Another crazy weekend in the books, regular season finale, and the playoffs are among us, Lloyd, so we appreciate a couple moments. How you been, pal?
No problem, Q. And, yeah, it's an exciting time. You know, nobody really wanted to see 18 weeks and 17 games, but this last week was exciting, but I'm ready for the real games to start.
Yeah, we'll get into them. I just want to get your thoughts on a couple of those regular season finales, and let's stick with the Colts for a moment and Carson Wentz, because there's already these reports out there that they're looking to kind of move past Carson Wentz. And I actually, and I know Johnny Max disagreed with me a little bit, I didn't think he played relatively poorly this season, but the last month or so, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road. He didn't play exceptionally well, had a bunch of bad turnovers and fumbles. And then in a game that they were favored by 13, 14 points against a team that seems like they had their number in Jacksonville, nothing to play for, Jags knock them out in playoff contention. So when you talk about, you know, these teams this season, would you put the Colts as one of the most disappointing teams in the NFL and really certainly maybe Carson Wentz a disappointing end of the season?
Definitely, Q. You know, and this was a chance for the Colts to be one of those teams that started 0-2 and rebounded and had a great season going into the playoffs, and they had everything right there in front of them, and they just laid an egg down there in Jacksonville. I don't know if they were too overconfident or they looked past the Jags. The Jags actually really wanted to play, even though they were in contention for that first pick in the draft. So you tip your cap to them, and when you look at the Colts side of things, you know, you can't help but look at Carson Wentz. He just was very frazzled in the game, inconsistent throughout the season, and he got sacked 6 times, had an interception, and he had a huge fumble in the game. So his ball security is not the best, and he's got that huge salary, and you wonder if he's really worth it.
Yeah, those are interesting points that you bring up. How about the Cleveland Browns, right? It seems like they want to kind of run it back with Baker Mayfield. They finished 8-9. They get a win to close out the season, but he had to deal with some issues. They traded OBJ. You know, we talked about their rushing attack. We know they got some big-time players, but this is a team that was 3-1. Then they slipped to 3-3. They alternated losses, and then you close the season out dropping 3 out of 4. Not the best route to go. So I think the expectations going into the season, AFC North, deep run into the playoffs after what we saw last year, not so much for this version of the Browns.
Yeah, the Browns were another disappointing team. You talk about all the weapons that they had, and they came back last year after that big playoff run and beat the Steelers. So, yes, you think they have the momentum coming in the season. And Baker Mayfield just was not the same guy ever since that shoulder injury to his non-throwing shoulder. So he just could not get the ball out. They do have a great rushing attack. You expect Hunt back. You expect Chubb back. And they probably need to get a receiver in the draft to protect Odell, who just did not work out there. So they're a team that definitely is hanging around. And we see how competitive the AFC North is. But it was disappointing for them this season.
With Black Monday, it's come and gone. We see the coaching carousel, the GM carousel. Let me just get your thoughts on Flores down in Miami. I know you got some ties down there. What are you hearing? How come it didn't work? And is this more of he just couldn't get along with the GM and really didn't want to back to it? Because I look at this team, and they played hard for him. I mean, this is a team that was, 1-7, and they won 7 in a row. I'm a little surprised. I'm not going to treat him like Lombardi, but I'm a little surprised that they relieved Flores of his duties.
Yeah, Q, you and I talked all throughout the season about who was going to be on the hot seat, and this name never came up. And this situation where Stephen Ross, who's the owner down there, he is back Chris Greer, the general manager. And Chris Greer, you know, Tua was his pick. I hear that Flores always wanted Herbert over Tua. Obviously,
sure,
that was a huge mistake there. And you know, Flores at 24-25, 24 wins, 25 losses in his career down there. He was building something, in my opinion. 10-6 his first year. Don't forget about that. 9-8 this year, and he swept the Patriots. So it just showed you that these guys were playing for him, and there was some disconnect between him and ownership. Very disappointing because I think he's still a good young coach. It just seems right now, Q, everybody wants an offensive coach. You know, they're willing to take their hitch their wagon to these young offensive guys like Luke Getsy. I'm hearing is getting some interviews now. He's a quarterback coach for the Packers. What has he really done out there? Everybody wants offense, and Flores is a defensive guy. Unfortunately, they seem to move off those guys very quickly.
Yeah, which is weird because I'm seeing that Albert Breer's tweeting that the Dolphins have put in a request to interview Cardinals defensive coordinator Vance Joseph. Not the great Vance Johnson, that was a wide receiver. Vance Joseph. And I think he was D.C. in Miami back in 2016. So, I mean, look, I don't know what the hell they're doing down there. They're still hanging. They're trying to hitch their wagon to see if they can get Deshaun Watson with so many issues out there. I don't know. Then you got Fangio out in Denver. You got the Panthers making a whole bunch of changes, but Matt Rule is still going to roam the sidelines next season, and perhaps beyond Maggie and Pace, we knew that was expected, and then Zimmer, Minnesota, Lloyd. So can you see Minnesota maybe, a retread or maybe going to go into college ranks here? Because they've got some talent. I mean, if you believe in Kirk Cousins, I think you just need the right head coach with the right system and scheme to make it work. I think Minnesota's got some players, man. It's just Zimmer ran its course.
Yes, he had 8 seasons to get it done, and he just couldn't. The last 2 seasons, they did not make the playoffs and went through the end of the season. And, you said the operative thing there. I think the Vikings will go with a veteran guy. So we're starting to hear all these coaches that had a job at one time maybe get another look. Jim Caldwell, Doug Peterson, maybe even Bill O'Brien, which I can't even believe. Teams are talking about maybe bringing him back. Dan Quinn, all these guys have run a program before, and I think a team like the Vikings would look for a veteran coach first rather than going for a guy that's young and hasn't been established yet.
What do you make of the Giants still right now? They haven't come out and announced what they're going to do with Joe Judge. I mean, Gettleman was your, quote, retirement, one of the worst GM tenures, I would say, in NFL history, certainly in Giants history. I mean, is this a situation where they got to clean house or they got to look at the house and clean it up a little bit? There's a big difference.
If it was me, they should have just ripped it all down and had Joe Judge go with Dave Gettleman. Obviously, forced retirement, and he's going away. And as you said, his tenure was very, less than spectacular. With a team that won 4 games, they lost all those games at the end of the season. I think they were on a 6-game losing streak to end the season. The team just was not playing for Joe Judge. I know you don't want to fire a coach before 3 years, they say, but I think after 2 years, Joe Judge is just not getting it done there. And why not just start anew with a new coach, a new quarterback, a new GM? So, right now the Giants are in the bottom of the NFC East, and you see Dallas, you see the Eagles, even Washington are all above them by a big margin.
Eric Bieniemy's out there. Byron Leftwich, I think, would be a great fit in Jacksonville, depending upon if Tampa Bay gets bounced or not. But, I mean, that's a guy that's beloved by Jacksonville. You got a young quarterback. I mean, how about those two? Do you see one of them finally getting a head coaching job?
Yes, I think one of them will get an opportunity, and Jacksonville could be a good landing spot for Byron Leftwich. Obviously, his ties with the franchise, being drafted by them, did a lot of good things down there. And Shad Khan this time, he's their owner. He's definitely doing a more intensive search than he did last time. Last time, he just handed the job to Urban Meyer, didn't look around. He's bringing a lot of candidates in, but I'm hearing Leftwich is one of the leaders in the clubhouse. They're another team that wants a guy that's developed quarterbacks in the past. So, you have Leftwich, who's worked with Big Ben in the past, Tom Brady the last couple of years. So why not bring him in to help Trevor Lawrence? So I think it may be his opportunity. Now, Bieniemy is interesting, too, because, everybody still always says the same things. He's never called plays himself, and It's really Andy Reid's offense. So, you'd like to see Bieniemy get an opportunity out there, and it may be a team where that's pretty downtrodden, and he has to come in and build everything up from the beginning, but you'd like to see a good chance.
Yeah, but do you think that kind of puts more pressure, though, on a young head coach, right? First-time head coach. Like, to me, I mean, look, if you're in a good situation, you're probably not getting rid of your existing head coach. But, I'm just trying to think of a fit. I think if Denver were to be able to get a quarterback or at least make a play and say they had Aaron Rodgers, I think that's a good fit for any head coach because I think they're built to win right now. I mean, Denver's got some young players. They've got draft stock, draft equity. draft picks coming. They got a very good defense. They can contend with an Aaron Rodgers. Now you just basically have to get the right head coach in place.
Right, and you said a good landing spot there for Bieniemy. He's a Colorado University legend, so he may get his chance there. I heard John Elway likes him. They brought him in for an interview, and they want an offensive-minded coach who's going to develop a quarterback. Obviously, they're going to get rid of Locke. They're going to get rid of Teddy Bridgewater. They're going to go anew there, and I expect them to have a new quarterback probably through free agency, as you were talking about. I don't know if it's going to be Rodgers, but definitely somebody that's a better frontline star than what they've had. So maybe Bieniemy there, but they're going to have an offensive coach in Denver.
All right, let's take a look at some of these games. We'll start with Cincinnati and the Raiders. What were your thoughts on the play calling late in that Chargers-Raiders game, and then how do you kind of handicap this one?
Yeah, the Chargers continually, they were aggressive all along, all season, going for it in fourth down. And, I was just shocked, to be honest with you, that they called that timeout and it came back to bite them. So it was a bad situation for them. And the Raiders, you have to hand it to them. Under Bashia, he definitely has this group believing 4 straight wins, and they were able to pull it out. Don't forget Daniel Carlson, one of the best kickers out there. So this game is going to be a fun one to watch. I expect a lot of offense. Don't forget, this is a rematch. Several of these games are. So last time in Week 11, it was 32-13 Cincinnati, and I expect Cincinnati, as long as you can protect Joe Burrow, he's going to drive that football down the field to Chase and Higgins and all the other weapons. So I expect Cincinnati to get their first playoff win since January 6, 1991.
All right, I got breaking news. I can celebrate. It is done. The Giants, multiple reports, have fired Joe Judge.
From Lloyd's mouth to the team establishment.
Oh, my goodness. Whew. I just feel like, do you ever see the movie Poltergeist?
Yes.
Okay. Remember, like, the little lady when she was just like, this house is clean? I just...
Yeah, I agree with you, Q. It had to be done. There's no way you bring Judge back after he was Gettleman's hand-picked guy, and if he made another mistake. He just, in the NFL, it's just cronyism, and he was vouched for by Belichick, and he's just not a guy that's head coaching material. The team, you hate to use this term, but to me, they kind of quit on him. They just limped home, and they were happy to take their licks. And you want somebody that's going to go in there and establish a program where the Giants, who are a cornerstone franchise in the NFL, they're going to fight every week, and you see some competitiveness.
Yeah, and the coach quit on them, too, by running a friggin' quarterback sneak on 3rd and 9.
Oh, I was thinking of you. As soon as I saw that, I couldn't believe that play.
Yeah, it wasn't a good time to reach out to me. I was having a moment. All right, how about the Eagles getting 8.5, 9 against Tampa Bay? I mean, can they cover this number?
Yes, I think, Q, you look at Week 6 when they played last time, it was 28-22 Bucks. So I think it's going to be a close game, within a touchdown or a field goal. You have to lean towards Tampa Bay, obviously, in this one because of Tom Brady and what he's doing down there. The key thing, though, is there's a lot of Bucks that are beat up down there, and particularly Mike Evans. He has a hamstring. Cyril Grayson, their other receiver, he has a hamstring. They're not sure they're getting Levante David back at the linebacking position. And the linebackers and Vita Vea in the middle are going to be the key to stopping the Eagles because the Eagles have the NFL's #1 rushing attack. And, Jalen Hurts are going to try to read options and get him on the edge, and they'll have Sanders back from his hand injury. So, it should be a tough physical football game. But if you're playing the points and everything, I say take the Eagles, take the points. But straight up, I think Tom Brady will find a way to win this game. We've seen the last couple of weeks. If he has a minute or less to drive down the field, he will find a way to win the game.
Yeah, I would concur with that one. How about an AFC matchup, 3rd time, Buffalo, New England? You got a rookie quarterback in Mac Jones, but a Hall of Fame head coach in Belichick. Then you go on the road against the upstart Bills.
Yeah, and it's a rubber match. So both teams, they split. The last game, though, I think really showed you. The Bills won 33-21 in Week 15. So they showed their dominance over over Mac Jones. So, it's going to be up to Judon to kind of get some pressure on Josh Allen, who who's really everything the offense runs with him for the Bills. You know, he's their leading rusher, and he's able to pass the ball down the field to Diggs and the rest of his weapons. So I think this is going to be a close game. You know, obviously divisional opponents, but I think the Bills will win this one, and they'll keep moving on in playoffs.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. It really is. You know, I don't think Pittsburgh and Kansas City, everyone's jumping on Kansas City, 12 and a half. Big Ben looks old. He's ready to just call it a day. And, you know, look, Tomlin's still a Hall of Fame head coach. He's been there before. We know all of a sudden about Andy Reid and Kansas City and the offense and Mahomes. I mean, I don't think Pittsburgh wins the game. Part of me was actually thinking Pittsburgh keeps it close. I have a lot of people telling me on Twitter, when I say keep it close, within 10, people are telling me this is going to be your one big blowout of the weekend. Do you believe that?
Well, it could get out of hand because we know the Steelers cannot play from behind. And it's going to be interesting because Najee Harris, their young running back, has played so well. He has an elbow injury. And Big Ben, if he doesn't have that running game, it's going to be tough for them. So it could be a blowout, but I think the Steelers have a lot of pride. Don't forget about defensively, they're still one of the best teams getting after their quarterback in the NFL. T.J. Watt, 22 and a half sacks this season, the record, and then you have Cameron Hayward on the other side. So the Chiefs line, you can get some. They have had some protection issues, and you can get Mahomes moving around, getting him frazzled. Obviously, you got to get turnovers in the playoffs, but I think that KC will try to limit the turnovers, get the ball to Hill against that secondary that can be suspect sometimes for the Steelers. So it should be an interesting game. 10 points, though, seems an awful lot to me. I may think about Pittsburgh and maybe doing a backdoor cover. Maybe they get a late touchdown to win that one.
All right, 5:40 on a Tuesday edition of Back Your Play. We'll take up to 6. Rich Quinones here, Lloyd Vance joining us. If you guys are just tuning in, we're going over these NFL playoff games. And the news that's just come down about 10 minutes, the New York Giants, by no surprise, have finally, mercifully it's coming to an end, fired Joe Judge. It's a move that had to be done. I think it was expected. I mean, the fan base would have absolutely revolted. And, I mean, look, am I ecstatic about it? Yeah, because I can't stand the guy. Now, you never want to see somebody get fired. I get it, but he was not the right fit from the start. Now it's going to be interesting is the direction they go in GM, who's probably going to handpick a head coach, which, by the way, tells you right there, Lloyd, that you got GM, head coach. They're not married to any of these players now, so that's something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, and that's what I always like to see when a new GM comes in, like George Payton's doing with the Broncos. You know, he's going to come in, he's going to assess, and then he's going to build his program. So he'll get to pick his coach right away, but you're right. It'll be coach, GM, quarterback, and they'll build from there. Now, Daniel Jones, I think, will come back, but they'll probably be bringing in somebody to compete with him.
All right, and then you got Dallas and the 49ers. 49ers are getting 3 in this one on the road against the Cowboys. Look, man, I'm preaching to the choir here with the listening audience that's been tuning in, but I think the 49ers are a live dog, and it's not going to shock me if they go on the road and beat the Cowboys.
Yeah, I've been back and forth on this one. Elijah Mitchell's playing great for the Niners, running the football down the hill. Now, the key, obviously, will be Jimmy G. He has to limit his mistakes in this game. He's had 20 touchdowns, but he's also had 12 interceptions this season. Got to protect the football, and then Dallas, obviously, they lead the NFL in takeaways. So they have 34 takeaways this season, and they're going to want to harass Jimmy G and get that from him. But the Dallas, to me, they seem a little overconfident going in, to the playoffs. They were so happy to beat up on the Eagles, JB, and, they're a very inconsistent team, particularly at home. So if this is a tough assignment, I've been back and forth on it. I think you're right. I'm going to go with the upset. I think the Niners take the points, and I think the Niners win this one.
All right, and then lastly, the Rams in Arizona. I think it boils down to Matthew Stafford. What Stafford are we going to see?
I totally agree with you. Another rubber match. Arizona won in Week 4, and then Week 14, the Rams came back to win 30-23. Both kind of close games, and we always talk about playoff tenets, and one of the big ones is, you have to protect the football, and Matthew Stafford, he cannot throw pick sixes like he did last week and still survive. So, he's a guy. Is he going to be the Detroit Lions Stafford, or is he a guy that's the former number 1 overall draft pick? So I think back and forth, I've been thinking about it, but I think Arizona can win this one. They're 8-1 on the road this season, and I think Kyler Murray should make some big plays. Obviously, they got to guard against Aaron Donald, who's one of the best out there. But this should be a fun game to watch, but I'll go with the Cardinals.
All right, who got the game ball over the weekend?
Yeah, the game ball definitely, I gave it to T.J. Watt, 5 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss in that big overtime win, 16-13, and he tied Michael Strahan's record of 22.5 sacks in a season.
And Lackey?
Yeah, Lackey, I think you probably noticed. The Lackey is Carson Wentz. He just, I've heard from a lot of Eagles fans that he's still that inconsistent guy, and he just was terrible in the game, and he just was not going to lead them back against a Jacksonville team that was ready to be taken. So I gave my Lackey to Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I think you have to. I mean, it's utterly crazy when you think about it. Here's a guy that, about 5 years removed talking about him being an MVP-like player, and he might be on his 3rd team in 3 years next year. So it's life in the NFL, man. I still think that the league is so wide open that you can make a case for and against each team in these playoffs.
I totally agree with you, and we saw last week, home teams were 8-8. So, it doesn't matter, home team, visiting team, and all these teams are going to fight to the end, and now it's the fun time of the year where we see which team really wants to step forward, and they each kind of have holes that they have to fill. Yep,
absolutely. All right, pal, I always appreciate you, Lloyd Vance, and, of course, give him a follow on Twitter. Great stuff with Vance's View every Tuesday at 5:20 right here on AM 1490, Sports Benny Bedio. Enjoy the games, my friend.
All right, you too. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it, our guy, Lloyd Vance. All right, a lot of stuff to digest. 5:45, quick timeout. Big news coming down. The Giants have fired Joe Judge. I'll give you my thoughts on the other side.